Hello? I can't do this. I can't stay here anymore.
We spend so much money to send you there. Give it some more time.
I know all that, but I don't feel good. I miss home. I can't. There's no one here for me. I just cannot.
Leaving home isn't easy. Saying goodbye to your family, stepping into the unknown, and starting from scratch. For many Indian students, this journey is filled with excitement, but also fear and uncertainty. There's often a silent struggle, one that's rarely talked about. But what drives students to take this leap? So we went ahead and asked some of our friends who lived abroad, some of our connections, and here's what we got from them. What do you think are the major reasons Indian students choose to study abroad?
I personally did not want to study abroad. It was my parents who pushed the idea of studying abroad. They wanted me to get the exposure that I wouldn't get back home. And they thought that if I would be exposed to a newer community and a more international community, I would learn more and have more of an open mind.
You get to make your own decision, your own choices. You experience everything by yourself. So I think that's the main reason people move to abroad. And another reason, I think it's because of the education quality, and people want to discover like different cultures and experience new things.
Let's say you have an object and someone is offering you 100 rupees and somewhere else they're offering 1,000 rupees for the same thing. Where would you go?
Starting a new life abroad can be extremely overwhelming. The excitement of living abroad very quickly fades when you find out that there's loneliness, there's academic pressure, there's financial stress. Simple things like finding your way around or making friends can feel quite exhausting. And if you're living by yourself, then these things can feel especially heavier.
For a lot of students, this shift quietly takes a toll on their mental health. Do you think living abroad affects mental health?
In my opinion, I think it does. But I definitely think moving abroad kind of made it a little bit worse. Mostly because I don't really have the time or the privilege to think about my mental health as much. I'm super busy. I'm out of my house 7 times a day. I study, I work.
For me personally, I feel like I have thrived after I've moved. So I feel like I'm able to identify who I am. I'm able to understand myself better here.
The positive side of being able to explore yourself and grow, but then also you're moving to a whole new country by yourself. If you don't have any family, any people that's going to be really hard because you're adjusting to like new studying, like new place of living, finding new friends, like setting all that up by yourself is a difficult thing, which it can impact your mental health because it's like, oh, I don't have anybody to rely on.
One thing I have experienced while living abroad is realizing how much I actually love my home. Like, I find myself being homesick quite a lot when I'm outside, because even though the community is international, it is very common to feel like lonely. You're the only one from your community back home feeling this way. I'm super homesick most of the time, craving like the food, the movies, and my family in general.
Before we go ahead, we just want to remind you that it's okay to feel lost. But remember, there's always someone willing to listen to you. Or you could always reach out to Rocket Health and speak to one of our expert therapists.
I've always been super independent, so I wasn't expecting it to affect me in that way, like in such a crucial way. I just feel empty, like I just feel lonely, no matter what I'm doing, no matter who I'm with.
No matter how exciting a new country is, feeling like an outsider can be tough. At first, everything feels new. But as time passes, the unfamiliarity starts to feel isolating. Moments that should feel exciting start to feel lonely, and the sense of not belonging can weigh you down.
Have you ever felt like you don't fit in?
For me personally, I think what affected me the most was a sense of community, and I've struggled to find my people, if that makes sense, even though I don't even know what my people means. But, I'm a super social person. I'm super outgoing. I like to talk to people. I like doing things to do, but that does not mean any of it feels like home.
I'm from Budapest in Hungary. So here the official language is Hungarian. And even though my university was English, most of the major communication was sent out in the national language Hungarian. So it was pretty tough for me to follow a lot of the official comms sent by the university. So I felt alone in my search for finding the right people or the right resources to just get basic university answers and everything. And there was always this in university, like everyone has their own like groups and like, they all have their own friends and everything. So in the beginning, it was more of the Hungarians were on one side, the international people were in like one side. And even in the international community, there were more groups because everyone had people from their own like homeland and everything like that. And I obviously didn't have anybody. So I did feel isolated that way.
The way for people to cope was to, drink or get high or like, and especially because you come to like place like Canada, everything is so accessible, like the house parties, the drugs, everything. You're just like, okay, let's go do it. And it's so normal that it's like, okay, that's their way of coping with it.
Like if I'm sitting with two UK boys and they are having their own talk, there is a point where sometimes they say something that I don't get it.
I feel like you just don't have a choice. Like you're just in your room and you're alone, and you don't have anybody to talk to. It's like you're so far away. There's this huge time difference. You can't really, call your parents. You don't want to worry them, so you don't really like, you don't bother. So you're just literally sitting all alone in your room, in your thoughts. So having friends, like, it really helps a lot. But I think if you don't find your crowd, it like gets harder.
Do you think cost of living adds to the overall mental burden?
In my experience, like I didn't really like take loans or anything to come to Canada, but I know a lot of students that do. And because of that, they have to make so much money to pay off those loans. A lot of students even send back money to their families. It's a difficult thing to do.
It's like in India, I used to finish my grocery shopping in 500 or 1000 and it would last me a month. And here weekly I'm spending around 40 pounds and that's around 4k. And I'm just like, it's going like water, and I'm like, okay, now I have to also manage this, also manage that, my rent, my daily expenses, like if I want to go out somewhere, how do I manage that? So I've had terrible breakdowns. Even last week I had a breakdown when it came to financial situation.
Like finances has been a huge problem for me. I'm also someone who make myself feel bad if I'm not able to pay off my stuff and I need my parents' help, like some months. And the cost of living in Canada is like insane at the moment. Like it's insane. Even if you have a full-time job, it is impossible to live off of that like normally as you would in any other country. You need at least minimum 3 jobs to even be able to afford rent if you want to live by yourself. If you don't want to live by yourself, you probably will have like 5, 6, 10 other roommates that you have to live with.
Expenses do get a lot, like because the currency is so less that the expenses do get a lot. They keep piling up. I mean, daily expenses you cannot even like opt out of daily expenses. That does play a big thing. Like housing is, if you get it from your college, very nice. But when it came to my college, they did not have they had housing, but it was pretty expensive. But then to do the other way around of getting a house there was much harder. I mean, I tried so much to contact people, and there were no given houses. Either you book a one year lease and without even looking at the house, or you come there and you stay for a month somewhere and find a house. Like, so I just opted out for the college housing, which was a bit more expensive.
What advice would you give to Indian students studying abroad?
The first thing I would say is do your research on the country, because you need to know like where you're going and what the situation is like. You need to understand like what difficulties you can face when you might enter there financially or like geographically as well.
I would say don't waste your time doing all of these like part-time jobs. And I've seen people doing like 20 hours every week just trying to pay their rent and food, but they're ignoring their studies and not applying to jobs because they're just trying to make their ends meet. But if you dedicate some of that time to actually applying and studying and improving your skills, you can get an internship, and with that you can easily pay off any of the loans, or even you can start living easily. I would say, like, don't waste your time on all of these other things. I would say focus more on what your objective was, why you're here. Don't lose focus of that, is what I would say.
You feel like you need people around you all the time, and if you feel like you can't spend your time with yourself, do not come here. You're going to spend a lot of time with your own thoughts, with your own emotions, and you should be prepared to handle them no matter what the situation is like. And also, if you don't know how to do things by yourself, like if you don't know how to take care of yourself, then I suggest you just sit at home and learn that first and then come. If you find it difficult to introduce yourself to a new crowd, then it's going to be a very hard time for you. You have to, every day you meet around 10 new people, you have to have that social energy to socialize with people around you.
Studying abroad isn't just about chasing dreams, it's a journey filled with challenges that aren't always visible. From battling loneliness, managing pressure, and coping with homesickness, this journey is very overwhelming. Through these difficult moments, students find the strength and learn to adapt. If you're a student abroad, know that it's okay to feel lost sometimes and it's okay to ask for help.